investigate your own practice and to evaluate how you're getting on. And I like that graphic, which I picked up from somewhere. I should have noted where I picked it up, so I'm not plagiarising, but it's so long that I can't find it now. So humble apologies to whoever drew that graphic. It was obviously a sculpture. But it's that sense that you start off locked in the wall, and gradually you manage to break through and break out and become a liberated beastie. So, moving from Macniff to Whitehead, who was mentioned earlier, and I know Jack has come and done one of the keynotes here at NERI and is a great supporter of this movement, and in fact is the person that linked me up with the Erie women in the first place. He says that you need to identify, and this is writing of his from 1995, identify a situation that puzzles you or that you want to improve. And I've put that doesn't have to be a problem, because some people, and one of my academic colleagues actually talks about problem-resolving action research, and I shudder every time I hear it, because sometimes people just come across a brilliant idea and they want to try it out in their own practice, and it's more like transforming my practice, but not because it's a problem. Sometimes it's a problem, but not always. So Jack says, and this is a paraphrase, you can pick it up from his original paper, what do I want to improve? Why do I want to improve it? What might I do to improve it? And there could be a variety of ways there. How will I know it's improved? What data will let me know that things are better than they were before? And what resources will I need? So that's a nice, straightforward sort of series of questions that you can ask. In his latter work, and starting also in the about 2006 in a paper that he wrote with Jean Macniff, he describes living educational theory. This is the same as action research. There's, if you like, a Venn diagram where there's action research one part, living theory, and they can overlap. But this is a form of self-study, like you're looking at your own practice. So this action research is, most of the definitions are strongly collaborative, you know, working in conjunction with other people. Living educational theory puts the spotlight more on your own practice and trying to transform your own practice. So it's developing your own educational theory based on knowledge of your personal, professional and political practice. If there is a political practice, not everybody has that. This sense that it holds hope to contribute to the development of the world in which humanity can flourish sounds very airy-fairy and grandiose, but it's basically saying, let's try and work for the greater good of the greater number. If anybody's ever read the Carr and Kemmis 1986 definitions of technical, practical and emancipatory action research, it's the emancipatory side of things there. And so they do that in the process of inquiring into the field and discipline and practice in order to improve it. Marie Huxtable has just written a really good article in the latest eJolts. For those of you who aren't familiar with that journal, it's the Educational Journal of Living Theories. Marie Huxtable is the editor of it, and I've got a couple of papers which URLs are at the end of that. It's a good place to publish your work, including work in progress. It works on an open reviewing process, so you can submit work into an initial forum and get feedback from people and gradually get it tighter and tighter till it's publishable. So that's one possible publication outlet for you, if you like. So another thing that you can do as a reflectively practicing teacher who's moving into action research is to look at the literature and to engage in professional development. There are a variety of professional memberships or events that you might want to tie up with. I mean, this is one of them, but in my part of the world down in Australasia, we have the Learning Action Research Association, which run yearly conferences. There is a New Zealand Action Research Network, which is slightly in abeyance at the moment, but Katrina and I last year went to the Action Research Group Ireland meeting symposium that they run just about every year in July, I think it was, Katrina, wasn't it?
Yeah, in UCD.
In UCD, yeah. That particular group focuses more on business and health-related research than educational research, but it was an interesting group. And David Coughlin at Trinity and Mary Casey, who's attended a couple of these NERI events, are fairly key players in that. So we have links through to them. Subscription to relevant journals. I know one of the issues from being a NERI, one of the issues for a lot of you, if you're retired or no longer in a formal educational environment, is access to journals, which is why you'll notice if you're on the mailing list, and Laura, I don't think we've got you on.
No,
yep, right, Maureen will put you on. From time to time I post if I come across lists of journals that are available freely, so that you don't have to sort of pay a sub to get to them. But access to a good academic library can be a real bonus, including using your librarians. I have a great love of librarians because they're amazing sources of information. And my daughter happens to be a university librarian. Going to courses to improve your practice, that's, I think, an issue here because it sounds as though teachers don't get the same sort of time out and payment for attending classes here that they do back in New Zealand. So that may be an issue that's a financial issue, really. And I've put at the end there, don't underestimate networking and corridor conversations because you can get quite a lot of professional advice from your colleagues. One of the things I used to do a lot of in New Zealand was preparing people for Teaching Excellence Awards. And when it was, you had to talk about your professional development, I found that was an area where people really underestimated the power of what they did as individuals and in collaboration with colleagues. Tended to focus largely just on courses and that kind of thing. So don't basically overlook your mates. And getting published. Laughter from the group.
Oh, yeah.
This is in the public domain. I found it when I Googled. Or I might have got it off your website. I deliberately didn't email you in advance and say, can I use this photo? Because you all would go, oh no, sure, no, you don't put that one up. So sorry ladies, but I've got you in there. You will have heard already that these four write books together and that Connie and Tom are writing a paper together. So writing together is actually really a great way of getting started. And as I said in the previous slide, eJobs enables you to put up something for formative feedback and gradually work on iterations. Most of my writing throughout my academic career has been in conjunction with others. I find it a really stimulating way to write. It's not always easy because you can have quite different sort of takes on things and different ways of expressing yourself, but it's beneficial. It really pays to have that extra pair of eyes on your practice and to see where you've totally lost the plot. Somebody's pulling you back in. Attending conferences to observe or contribute. If you haven't gone to a conference before, I would recommend going to one for a first time, the kind of conference that's the norm in your field, without contributing, so you get the hang of how people do things without having to freak out about doing something yourself. But after that, in general, of the conferences that I've gone to and presented papers, which is a lot over the years, people are generally very accepting of what you say and happy to give you change feedback if you ask for it. I have very rarely gone to conferences where somebody rubbishes somebody else's work. It may be the kinds of conferences that I go to, but I don't know whether that's been the experience of most of you here.
You haven't attended a sociology conference. They are expert at rubbishing the work of others.
Are they? Oh, that's sad.
You have the quant-qual divide.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Feminists, and people arguing against them. So, but in a way, that's healthy.
Mm.
Yeah,
it is, but there are ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And if it's a new career academic, just putting their work forward for the first time and they get rubbished.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. Okay. So some ideas of where you might publish your work if you decide, right, I've been this reflectively practicing teacher. I'm moving into action research. I want to start, contributing to the wider educational environment by publishing my work. Where can you go? There's a whole wad of journals there that are action research related journals. Your professional journals may also, like the Journal of Educational Engineering or computing educational stuff like that, you can find professionally related journals that will publish accounts of practice. as somebody said earlier, well, Mary, I don't know if it was you, there's still a resistance to action research in some areas. There's a guy called Bob Dick, who was very active in the Action Research Action Learning Group in Australia, who used to be a professor in the psychology department of the University of Queensland, and he said he had all kinds of trouble with getting action research accepted there, because psychology tended to follow the quantitative, positivistic ways of doing research, and the ways that action researchers investigate their practice just were too far. They were the pork chops in the synagogues, basically. Jack Whitehead has also said that there is areas where you get living theory being quite rubbished. So living theory is a very recent approach to doing theory. So if you write a living theory account, you might find that doesn't go down too well in some fields either. So pick your battles, basically. Other places that you might publish your work, well, here, for example, we're going to be hearing from some of our group later on doing the round robins, and Laura, because you haven't been to one before, and Colin, round robins are, you're going to do one. Round robins are an opportunity to kind of just do a 5 to 10 minute presentation on where I've got to with my work at the moment, or something I've discovered, and they're a great way for the rest of the group to find out what you're doing. So do feel free to put one in next time.